I want to talk about several different options as you think about divorce. One of those options is reconciliation. I know that's probably not the first thing you want to hear somebody talk about when you've already thought about divorce, but I have a number of clients that come to me who are just really frustrated. They maybe tried or haven't tried counseling. They are at the end of their rope and they don't think there's any other option but to go forward with divorce. So let's first of all talk about what reconciliation may or may not look like for you in your situation. So there's several ways to think about approaching reconciliation. One of the first questions I ask is, have you actually tried counseling? And I use this in a way in which I don't want to offend anybody about this process, but I've just heard so many people tell me, oh, we've tried counseling. And to me, that means they've maybe gone to 1 or 2 sessions. They may have not connected to the counselor at all, or either one of you, or maybe both of you, or not one of you connected to the counselor. And connecting to your counselor is incredibly important in this process. And so you kind of gave up on counseling and say, well, we tried that once and it didn't work. Well, let me just kind of challenge you to think about what it means to train for a good marriage versus trying to get counseling. And I use this analogy. I'm overweight. I need to be dropping some weight, and if I tried to run a marathon tomorrow, it would be very ugly, and it would be all I could do is try. I'm pretty sure I couldn't finish. But if you gave me a year to train to do a marathon, I may not run the whole marathon. My knees are kind of shot, but I'd probably finish it if I had a whole year to train for it. So sometimes I ask couples this question: Have you tried to fix your marriage? Have you tried some counseling or other things? Or have you really trained to know what it looks like to have an awesome marriage? And a lot of times that question varies a lot, and the answers vary quite a bit. So that's my first thing is, have you really given it a great shot? And if you haven't, you might want to consider that and what it looks like to do that. One of the ways in which we work with counselors is to define what's called a therapeutic separation. There may be so much heat in your relationship right now and so much radioactivity around it that it's really hard for you to be in the same place at the same time, and particularly living in the same household. So sometimes, to give your marriage your best shot, sometimes you have to separate in order to let things cool off a bit. What that separation typically looks like is you each have a counselor, so you're each working on individual things that we've come to identify and recognize, or these are the most important things to work on right now. And then once you've worked with those counselors or that counselor far enough to deal with individual issues, then that counselor or counselors determine whether or not marital therapy is ready to be reintroduced. So let me reinforce what I just said. In a therapeutic separation, most of the time you do not continue marital therapy because the relationship is so strained and there's so much stress on it that being together is not helpful, it's being hurtful. So we separate you for a brief period of time, typically around 6 months, and we define exactly what therapy needs to be addressing. You might work with one therapist, you may work with 2 therapists, each of you, but the goal is individual focus to help you each find the healing and the change needed to be helpful in the marriage. And when both parties are working hard, there's a really good shot for the marriage to work again. So then marital therapy is reintroduced, and when that is followed and both parties engage wholeheartedly in the counseling and they have counselors they're identifying with and working with, I've seen a great deal of success in that relationship. So we work with a number of therapists to help them construct and help them guide them through a therapeutic separation process for the greatest hope of reconciliation. So that's a lot what reconciliation looks like. Next one we're going to look at is legal separation.